Do you want to find a stress-free way to buy your next car? Start at CarMax and shop your way. If you want to browse with confidence, get pre-qualified online with no impact on your credit score and shop cars within your budget, from luxury cars to family rides. CarMax has options for almost every price range, including more than 25,000 cars priced under $25,000. So, hey, want to get started? Just head to CarMax.com for details and get pre-qualified today. Want to drive? CarMax.
Hey now! Hi friends, welcome to Scott Fox After 9. I did not think I was going to get this episode out. I had every intention of doing one today. However, on my way home from work, I decided I would drop into my dentist because I had a filling that was either coming loose or just wasn't fitting right. So I dropped into the dentist and she said, "Yeah, Scott, let's fix that right now." I didn't think that I'd be frozen. So at the end of the appointment, the lower half of my mouth was not functioning the way the top of it was, and I didn't think that was the best way to put a good foot forward for anybody who is just discovering this podcast. But hey, the freezing has mainly worn off, and I'm glad I waited, because earlier today, Prime Minister Mark Carney did his session-end news conference. This is something that used to happen regularly. At the end of a legislative session, the leaders would sit down with the media and answer questions on just about any topic. Well, it didn't really go down that way with Justin Trudeau, and we all know Trudeau didn't really answer questions anyway, so I guess it's better that he didn't, but I am glad to say the Prime Minister is bringing back that tradition. I'll also point out, not only did Mark Carney do a session-end news conference, so did Pierre Poilievre, and unlike the mainstream media, I believe in equal coverage. So what I'm going to do is, in a separate episode, I'm going to do a full breakdown of Pierre Poilievre's session-end news conference. There was some fascinating stuff that came out of that news conference. Keep an eye out for that episode, because I think you should hear what the leader of the opposition and the man who wants to be prime minister has to say about the issues, and it's good to see it in a format where he's taking questions from the media. You know, they both did preamble. They both did opening remarks before they got to the Q&A, and I'm not going to carry any of that. Those comments are scripted. Those comments are rehearsed. Those comments highlight all the good and none of the bad. And I don't think it's very helpful. I'd like to hear them on their feet responding to reporters. So again, keep an eye out for that Pierre Poilievre episode. It'll drop in the next couple of days. Right now, let's focus on our Prime Minister. Session-end news conference. Let's go to the Q&A.
In English on the SKS?
Okay, so I began. I'm going to give the whole answer, if I may, because I think it's important. I began by expressing, and I will reaffirm, my sincere condolences to the families, the friends, the colleagues of the officer who was killed, his colleague who was gravely injured. All those affected in the SPVM by those events, the civilian who died, his family, Montreal, all the citizens of Montreal, all of Quebec and Canada, we're all affected by this tragedy. The inquiry, the investigation, more precisely, is led by, overseen by the Sûreté du Québec, obviously assisted by the SPVM, and as necessary by the RCMP. I'm receiving regular updates on procedures of that. It is not for me to confirm specific aspects of that investigation. I leave those to the relevant authorities who make these decisions, as I know from previous circumstances, make these decisions in a very deliberate way, consistent with their responsibilities. So I leave it to them. And then with respect to the arms control and firearm decisions around specifics, we are in the process of moving towards an expert-led system specifically by the RCMP. We would have to introduce legislation for that to make those determinations, to make and to provide the full resources and the direct determinations so that they are made clearly, consistently in advance, and particularly as there are new firearms coming on, that they make those decisions. Thank you.
Okay, what you just heard was the Prime Minister repeating in English what he had previously said in French. It was another Quebec reporter that was asking about gun control and trying to tie it to what happened in Montreal, which, by the way, was a horrific tragedy. I cannot believe that unfolded on the streets of Canada. There's a lot of moving parts to that, and I actually happen to agree with the Prime Minister. We should probably wait for the investigation before we come to any conclusions. But either way, as much as some are trying to paint this guy out to be a right-wing extremist, some of the stuff in this manifesto, which they found very quickly, by the way, some of the things in there, I would actually tie to left-wing extremism, to be perfectly honest with you. But I think it's too early to draw conclusions. However, I do agree with what the Prime Minister very clumsily said. You could tell he was searching for the perfect words, and it took a while for them to come up. It is a tragedy what happened in Montreal. I don't know what to say about that civilian that was shot. It was a horrible circumstance. I don't know what to say about that police officer who shot him as she was under fire herself and as her partner had just been shot and was bleeding out right in front of her. The whole thing is just awful, and you got to keep in mind the victims and the families right now. When the investigation goes a little further, when we find out if this guy truly did act alone and what motivated him, then we can talk more about gun control. But frankly, at the moment, I don't know that this conversation needs to be part of the gun control conversation. We have very stringent gun control rules. If we need to re-examine those, fine. But I don't think using an event like this to politicize the gun buyback is smart, practical, or helpful. We need to take things with evidence in front of us and make our decisions based on that. Now let's get to another one from the Prime Minister.
Mr. Prime Minister, how would you characterize your discussion with Donald Trump in advance of the NATO talks? And is the U.S. finally getting the sense that we're increasing our defense spending, or do they still see us as a free rider?
Well, first, the President called me yesterday. We had a long discussion with him and at times some of his senior officials, Secretary Hegseth and his Commander-in-Chief, on a range of issues, some related to NATO, some related to the situation in Iran and the broader Middle East, both current and structural issues. Is a very constructive conversation. There's things we're working on together. I think those are best left till they come to fruition. It's let's be clear. Canada is pulling its weight now in NATO. There's more to do, without question. But we have moved to meet the 2% target, as you know. We already meet the 1.5% target for defense resilience, defense industrial. We have a track to getting overall 4%. By the end of this decade. We have some major procurement decisions. We just made one on Global Eye surveillance. We have others coming up. Submarines is an obvious one. And we're building out our infrastructure in the Arctic, assuming full sovereignty in all senses of the word in the Arctic, and very importantly, working with other NATO allies in a more detailed cooperation. Is one of the things I raised yesterday. So with the Nordics, with the UK, with France, with Germany, in terms of the overall Arctic security. So to protect the Arctic, you need to protect the Baltics and on up. I think what we answer first, we answer to Canadians and protecting Canadians. We answer to our allies in terms of fulfilling our roles and protecting our allies. And I'll just end with this, which is that, and give you your follow-up. We are at the front lines in Latvia with Operation Reassurance, and we are one of the most important contributors to support of Ukraine, including security guarantees for Ukraine.
Okay, the Prime Minister talking about a little bit about his conversation with the President yesterday. And yes, I am told that the President did reach out to the Prime Minister, but you're going to hear later on in this episode that they did not discuss the upcoming CUSMA renegotiation. It's less than a week away from the deadline, and they didn't even talk about it. But we'll get to that. What the Prime Minister said is fine. But let me just point out something that I think should be obvious now. You can tell this guy is very, very, very wealthy. He has never wanted for anything. He is very much about financing. When we're in the financial situation that we're in as a country, and when we all agree that Canada has to do more to protect its sovereignty and invest into our military, and we all agree that Canada has an obligation to do that anyway as part of our broader commitment to NATO, does it make sense that with all of the spending we've got to do coming up, that we buy new? You know, when you're first starting out, it's very expensive to go out and just buy a new car. That's why very many people will opt to buy a used car when they're just getting into the car market. Could we not check a whole lot of boxes by just thinking a little bit differently? Why are we going to line up to spend billions of dollars with either a German company or a Korean company and buy submarines from them? Billions and billions and billions of dollars for their economies. And by the way, they won't be ready for, 10 years before any of those subs are delivered? The cost is going to go over. It's going to take forever to get them. Why don't we just do this? In another peace offering to the Americans, how about we go to them and say, rather than us buying new, why don't we take on your gently used military equipment? You know, just because the shelf life on a nuclear submarine is 10 years doesn't mean it's no good after 10 years. We'll buy it certified resale. Tell the Americans, when you've got military equipment that's toward its life's end, send it up to Canada. We will buy it from you at a discount. And that, by the way, will allow us to buy many, many more submarines as opposed to one expensive, fancy new one. Buy the used stuff from the Americans. That gives them more money to go out and buy the latest and greatest technology, and we're even more safe because they play an integral role in our defense. We should be buying used. I know people have got a bad taste in their mouth because of that stupid deal that we did to buy those 4 used diesel subs from the UK. That was a bad deal. You know, there is an opportunity here to extend the life of some of the military equipment that we already have in North America, to allow us to buy bulk defense items and get it right away, as opposed to going through the process that the Prime Minister is going to go through. Big, long procurement process. It's going to cost way too much money. Then there's the cost overruns. We all know it's going to cost more than they say. It'll take forever to get it. I'm proposing a very quick, practical, common sense solution. Work with the Americans when they're when they're at the end of life on an aircraft carrier or close to it. Let us buy it. We'll use it for a few years. We'll deploy it the way we see that it should be fit. That'll make the Americans very happy if we do that. It'll save us money, and it'll allow us to buy more and get it right away. That's just my thought on it, friends. Not that the Prime Minister even asked, but that's, I think, the way we've got to start looking at things from a practical, common sense way.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Willie Tam with the Western Standard over here. I'm just following up from a colleague's question, French, previously. Based on the recent tragedy in Montreal, the mayor of Montreal is renewing calls for extended gun control. Of course, Quebec has a relatively strict gun regime, and so does Canada. Your critics are criticizing your current approach in terms of, in their view, targeting law-abiding firearms owners, and that won't solve the problem of public safety and security. What do you say to those critics?
Well, I'd say, and I'm going to refer to my previous answer, I'll expand. Ultimately, we're addressing violent crime. Most heinous violent crimes, crimes motivated by hate, crimes motivated by misogyny, crimes motivated by, these aspects potentially including, and I'm not referring to the specific circumstances as I say this, but potentially including acts of terrorism. We need a multifaceted approach here. Part of it is gun control, and ensuring that with respect to gun control, One of our responsibilities, of course, is to act within our constitutional responsibilities. As you would know, there are Supreme Court challenges and Supreme Court review that is in train. Possible decision next year in terms of our firearm, some aspects of our firearm measures. So we have to act consistent, obviously, within the law. Number one. Number two, as I said earlier, we strongly believe that, and we've shown, we followed through on that belief with legislation, the tightening of a series of legislation, particularly with respect to repeat offenders, acts with violence, acts with firearms, acts with gangs, violence against women, crimes in and of themselves, which need to be punished and addressed appropriately. Also, as evidence has shown over time, crimes that it's a terrible euphemism, but can be precursors to more violent acts. So we're acting in those aspects as well. And obviously we work with provinces and municipalities where we can.
I'm really not sure what the Prime Minister is saying there. I really don't. The question was very simple. Does going after law-abiding gun owners, regular duck hunters and sport shooters, does going after them do anything to make us safer? Well, the Prime Minister doesn't have a good response for that because it is incredibly flawed legislation that is costing taxpayers way too much money and, in my estimation, seriously infringing on our rights. Keep in mind, firearms owners have been vetted by local police, by the federal police. They have taken a safety course, and the list of reasons that they're fine goes on and on and on. The Prime Minister, smart to pivot there and try and cite his new justice bill. I want to point out that a year ago, we all agreed during the election, crime and punishment must be dealt with. Well, it took a year, but we finally have something on the books now. But it is so watered down that I don't think that we've done here in this legislative session, what we passed, I don't think that Canadians should feel that much safer based on what we did, because there's still a lot of loopholes that allow for house arrest, that allow judges to factor in someone's immigration status and give them a more lenient sentence and things like that. You've probably heard a lot of the criticism of what we wanted versus what we got. It's progress, but it doesn't go nearly far enough. So I don't know that the Prime Minister can necessarily say, well, we passed the law, so Canadians are safe now. I don't think we're anywhere close to that.
Just a follow-up on another area. Your government has recently announced some spending measures on promoting peace between Israelis and Palestinians. So I want to revisit your stated objective. You said a year ago you wanted to see a, quote, Zionist Palestinian state. Can you clarify if you still support that stance, and do you consider yourself a Zionist?
In the following respect is what I said, and it's consistent with our announcement a little less than a year ago around moving to a process to recognize the state of Palestine, which is a decision we took, and I stand by this, we took because the possibility, the prospect, the probability of a two-state solution was receding. Now, what is a two-state solution? This answers your question, which is a free state of Palestine living in peace and security with Israel. Okay, recognizing not just Israel's, quote, right to exist, but to live in full freedom and security. And those are the two core elements of that. And what's necessary for that to be achieved, many things are necessary for that to be achieved. Part of what's necessary for that to be achieved are a series of reforms by the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. There is progress on those. There are a range of other issues that are required in order to stabilize the situation. We've called for an end to these illegal settlements, settler violence. We have instituted sanctions. We're working with regional partners. We're working with all interested counterparties to try to move that forward so we can get to that end state, which is still, as you would know, some way off.
The question was, would you consider yourself a Zionist? Can I just say, though, that what the Prime Minister is talking about should be the ideal for everybody. Everybody's got to coexist. There needs to be a peaceful and thriving Palestinian state and a peaceful and thriving Israeli state. The problem is there's a lot of missiles and bombs and things like that getting fired into Israel. So Israel, once they get attacked, then they return the favor. Then they're bombing Hamas to the south and Hezbollah to the north, but there's a lot of civilians in the way. You know, we've got to get to a point where everybody stops shooting at each other. Should we consider good old-fashioned peacekeepers? You know, that used to be a thing. When countries or territories couldn't coexist, we had peacekeepers there. The UN had a force that they would deploy. Maybe that's where we need to go with the Middle East. I'm not suggesting that is the right answer. I'm just saying it's a possibility because, frankly, we need the shooting to stop. That's the only way we're going to get to a peaceful two-state existence.
I want to go back to your announcement last week on buying the vacant units in BC. It's taken a lot of people by surprise. Some developers have said they didn't ask for this. There were, though, a lot of developers at your fundraiser in BC in February. Did anybody ask you for this from the development community?
First off, thank you for asking me that question because not the last bit, I'll answer that last bit. But first off, no developer asked for this for me directly. So,
hold on a second here. I don't know why the Prime Minister is so evasive. I mean, that's a shady answer. No one asked me for this directly. And he said directly under his breath. Let me play that for you one more time. I want you to hear this answer because this deserves more clarification.
Did anybody ask you for this from the development community?
First off, thank you for asking me that question because not the last bit, I'll answer that last bit. But first off, no developer asked for this for me directly. So that's a simple answer. But I want to go to the...
I want to know more about that. Did anybody ask your staff for that? Did anybody ask one of your ministers for that? Did anybody scribble a note on a hotel pad and mail it to Parliament and ask for that? That was a very evasive answer and a big red flag for me. I'd like to know more about that. I'd also like to know if there was any conversations with anyone at Brookfield about this, because they would probably be one of the big players in this condo bailout if that's what we're going to be doing. Let's hear the rest of the Prime Minister's answer, because this is completely fascinating. And in my estimation, this is a huge issue all across Canada. And it doesn't matter if you're left or right. This is about right versus wrong. This is using Canadian taxpayer dollars to bail out real estate investors who made a bad investment. These same builders and real estate developers that are living a real great life most of the time, they made a fortune off of Canadians for years with jacked up prices. Now they've got some units they can't sell. Do they take a loss on them? No. Do they lower the price? No. Canada is coming in with taxpayer dollars to buy them from them and let them off the hook, rather than them just lower the price like the market would call for.
When people turn to telehealth for weight loss, they're looking for real support. That's why more people are choosing OrderlyMeds.com. Orderly Meds connects you with real doctors and access to proven GLP-1 medications like semaglutide and tirzepatide. No guessing, just a more supportive experience, and all shipped directly to your door in discreet packaging. Do your research, ask questions, then visit OrderlyMeds.com/podcast for an exclusive offer. That's OrderlyMeds.com/podcast. Individual results may vary, not medical advice. Eligibility required. See site for details.
The broader issue. And I want to say up front, I don't think we've done, self-included, a particularly good job of rolling this out and explaining exactly what it is. So with your indulgence, I'm going to say, I think it's important to say a few words of what this is and what this isn't. We start, as we always do, with Canadians. We don't start with developers. We don't start, what? Yes, it's great that there are developers and they build condos. What we care about is affordable housing, enough affordable housing, in this case, for the people of British Columbia. And the province of British Columbia, which initiated the idea, sees an opportunity, potentially given what's happening in that market, to convert some of these condos that are lying unsold to affordable housing, particularly rent-to-buy affordable housing for, and you can anticipate, so these are people, in many cases young families, but people who don't have money for a down payment, but can build in that equity over time, rent-to-buy. So there's an opportunity there. You have a market in Vancouver, which is particularly Greater Vancouver, Lower Mainland, which is, absorption rates have moved down to about 60%. They've sort of averaged on 80% in a normal market. So in other words, there's more condos that are there. We're potentially, because it's a question of the actual transactions when and if they come, providing about 10% of the financing with the federal government for this in a way that can make the transaction work. So it would be buying distressed condos. Of course, the developer is not going to admit that they're going to have distressed condos, right? But we don't care about the developer. We care about the person, the family that can potentially move into the home. So buying them at a discount at the right time, financing, terming that out, setting up a rent-to-own structure for truly affordable housing. That's an opportunity. We will look at any opportunity across the country that gets more affordable housing to Canadians. Can't do it all, but where we see dislocation, where we see opportunities, where that's the best use of the dollar, we will look at that. And certainly when the province brings that and brings ideas and brings an opportunity in a market where it's there, that makes sense to look at. There's no specific transaction. There's no specific contemplated transaction at this stage, but there is an opportunity, and if it's there, and I think the issue will be if and when there are transactions, then judge those transactions on the basis of the economics of that, not on the concept. So we haven't done a good job of, which is why one of the reasons why you're asking the question, of explaining all the economics of that. But there's an opportunity, and if it's there, we'll pursue it for the family.
Wow, that is just a completely stunning answer. It sounds like he's now trying to walk it back because he realizes how unpopular this is. If there's a transaction, now this is some sort of a rent-to-own scheme. What the hell is going on in Ottawa? Throwing around billions of dollars to bail out real estate investors. And now we're getting a wishy-washy answer from the Prime Minister. Oh, some of it'll be rent-to-own, and, the federal government's only going to finance about 10%. Why are we financing anything? You know what'll create affordable housing, Mark? Banker Mark Carney, I know you don't want to hear it. I know that this would betray everything you believe, Mark. But let me tell you, on behalf of the Canadian people, you know what's going to make affordable housing? Cutting the damn interest rates. Get on the phone with your buddy Tiff Macklem and cut those rates now. We've almost got a 69-cent dollar in this country. People are broke. Cut the damn interest rates. That will create much more affordable housing. Because what's going on right now? Sending billions of dollars to developers on some sort of a rent-to-own scheme? What are you talking about? These units are $1.4 million each overlooking the Vancouver harbor. We're going to make those affordable housing units. How affordable on a rent-to-own? What is the rent going to be? My estimation, $1.4 million condo. The rent's got to be at least $4,000 a month. And if they're also financing their down payment, it's got to be $5,000, $6,000 a month. That's not affordable. How many years will it take for the Canadian people to get their money back for this? I assume we're selling these units eventually, since it's rent to own now. How many years until the Canadian taxpayers are repaid? Because the builders get their money right away. We're taking their problem off their hands and making it our problem and our expense. This is a completely ludicrous suggestion. And frankly, the Prime Minister twice saying they've done a bad job at explaining what they're trying to do tells me that minister has got to go. The Housing Minister, Gregor Robertson. When the Prime Minister has to come out and change the plan mid-game and say that they've done a terrible job at explaining it, that means that minister has got to go. That's Gregor Robertson, the housing minister. Even the Prime Minister doesn't think he's doing a very good job. So keep an eye on him to get shuffled in the next cabinet shuffle, because it is just a mess what's going on here.
Just to be clear, so when you say the feds are looking at 10% of the financing, What is the dollar value of that? 10%
I think
of what?
the dollar value is, the overall dollar value contemplated is about 1.4 billion, 1.45 billion, which is federal and provincial. So 10% of that, 145 million, yeah.
And so that will be all rent to buy and
It
only
will-
in BC?
well, it'll depend
or
on
will the government also be
Sorry,
buying these?
Well, look, I don't know how much we can give you. We'll get someone to give you. It depends on what's available, Ms. Walsh. And, as things become available, as the structure's there, again, I think the core point, and I'll stop here, is that there's an opportunity that potentially gets affordable housing to families, particularly those who can't get the down payment together. And if that opportunity is there and we can convert condos in order to do that, we will do that with British Columbia because they're looking to do it. And that's an effective way that is a more effective way of getting affordable housing immediately into people's hands than building again. So I stopped there. Sorry.
We'll move to Tom.
Well, he's right. It's going to take forever to build all this affordable housing, so we should do something now. Bailing out real estate investors is not the solution. He doesn't even understand what he's doing here. All he wants to do is put $1.4 billion in the pockets of the builders. The rest will figure itself out, is basically what the Prime Minister is saying. I don't think there's a single person listening now. I don't even think that if you are a Mark Carney card-carrying Liberal, you can say, yeah, he's got this. He knows exactly what he's doing. There's our smart businessmen running our country. I don't think anybody, after listening to that answer, can say that because, frankly, it sounds like a hot mess. Scrap this entire idea. Don't spend any more taxpayer money on this. If those units aren't selling, the builder should drop the price. And when they drop it enough, someone will come along and buy it. When someone buys it, whatever price that is what's going to determine the value of the unit. Just because the builder says he wants 1.4 million doesn't mean we're giving him 1.4 million. Well, we'll probably overpay, to be honest with you. What a mess. Friends, this one is, if the Prime Minister doesn't walk this one back, it's going to dog him for the rest of his term as Prime Minister. This is just as bad for him as the Doug Ford jet fiasco was for Doug Ford.
On the question of Alberta separation, we've heard that dozens of your MPs are going to be going to the Calgary Stampede this summer in advance of the referendum out there. I'm wondering if you're planning on going, but also how much time do you plan on spending in Alberta this summer talking about the separation question, and what's your message going to be?
Yeah, well, I'm always happy to go back to my home province, and I will be going to the Stampede, so I'm looking forward to that. And I'll be there. Look, I've probably been there 6 times in the last year, give or take, and would expect to be there several times, just normal course. Obviously, we're doing a lot more with Alberta. I'm not always in Alberta. I talked to Premier Smith 2 days ago. She was in Alberta. I wasn't, but it was about Alberta. Look, I think what's the core message? First is Canada's worth fighting for. I mean, this is the greatest country in the world. We're not perfect. We can get better, but Canada's worth fighting for. And standing up for Canada and supporting Canada is important. Motivation is always an issue in any vote referendum. Secondly, that we're stronger together. We're working on, and I give the example, I won't belabor it. I know we want to make sure everyone can get questions in, but the example of the work we're doing with Alberta on the pipeline, which requires Alberta. It requires British Columbia, Indigenous peoples cooperation. It requires foreign buyers. It requires the federal government. And it's all of us working together which creates that possibility. It requires new carbon capture and technology and being put in place. The federal government is playing an important role. We're not the proponent, we're not the sole role, but we're playing an important role in helping to make that. That is possible because of Canada and because of the goodwills there and the cooperative federalism. There are many other opportunities, a series of opportunities Premier and I discussed away from that, which we're working on. And I think we're worth fighting for. Canada's worth fighting for. Stand up and be counted. That we are stronger together. We can get better. We're getting better, but we're stronger together, and there's real examples there. And then thirdly, this is a real referendum. It's not question about a question, free option. It's a dangerous bluff. We're literally at 10 years anniversary of Brexit. And I saw firsthand what gets sold in these referenda, that everything's going to be easy, that you can keep your passport, you can keep the currency, you can stay in the country and leave it at the same time. You get all the benefits, but none of it. And you see what's happened in the United Kingdom. It's very reminiscent. At a minimum, it's years of uncertainty before the subsequent question comes, right at a time the world is fundamentally uncertain, right at a time Alberta and Canada, Quebec, Ontario, the territories, the whole country are moving to the forefront, right at the time when we're seen as one of the most trustworthy, reliable, desirable countries to do business with, and we shouldn't mess that up.
What a disaster of an answer. Wow. Prime Minister Mark Carney there. I don't know why he needed to lecture Albertans at the end of that. He was right. We are a great country and we're a country worth fighting for. Absolutely. Mark Carney, if he wants to end this right now, all he has to do is repeal the 9 Justin Trudeau bad laws. But he hasn't done that. He could, he hasn't. Mark Carney could approve a pipeline himself. He hasn't. Mark Carney is talking about solutions that will take decades to pay off for Albertans if they agree to stay. He's saying Albertans and what they're going to vote on in October, which again is a referendum question to ask if there should formally be a referendum. That's what they're voting on in October. It's a question to decide if the question will be asked. The Prime Minister is just straight up misleading Canadians by saying this is the referendum and it's a dangerous bluff. It's not a bluff. What is it going to take to get it through your head? Canadians are angry. Albertans in particular feel extremely alienated. They have my entire life by Ottawa. They're tired of being ripped off and being held back. Why won't the Prime Minister repeal the Trudeau-era laws that made Albertans so deeply unhappy right now? Why won't he do that? Why won't he authorize a new pipeline right now? Why won't he? That could end this. That's not what he's talking about doing. He used Brexit as an example. Oh, Brexit was a disaster. Listen, I'm a UK citizen. I'll tell you a thing or two about Brexit. Brexit in principle made a lot of sense. It was the execution that was deeply flawed, and it was run by left-wing governments that screwed the whole thing up based on ideology. People in the UK aren't unhappy because they're not a member of the EU anymore. They're unhappy because their government has crushed them with wild crime, insane immigration policies, and a terrible economy. Same as in Canada. That's the problem. Brexit is not the issue. Brexit, feel however you want to feel about it. But for the Prime Minister to say the UK's problems are because of Brexit, that's completely misleading. Now, when it comes to the issues, the details, a lot of people want to know the answer. Mark Carney suggesting you won't be able to take the Canadian dollar. You won't be able to keep your passport. That's complete and total nonsense. What do you mean? Someone who was born in Canada is a Canadian. This government should be reinforcing that. Now, if Alberta decides they don't want to be Canadian anymore, that doesn't mean the people who live there renounce their citizenship. You should be dual citizens. And this is one of the common sense things and one of the interesting conversations that we'll have to have if we are completely unsuccessful in the next few months at convincing Alberta that Canada's worth fighting for. Let's have those conversations. Everybody should know the facts. Everybody should know what's at stake. If Mark Carney is saying Albertans are going to lose their Canadian citizenship if they separate, I'd like him to say that. Is he suggesting they can't have the Canadian dollar? Really, I would think we would want more countries trading using the Canadian dollar. But okay, well, what would the next alternative be? The US dollar. Mark Carney is inflaming this situation, and he's doing it because he wants a crisis. He's just building up to this now, but you watch. He wants to push Alberta to the edge and then claim he's Captain Canada who saved the country. Stop pissing them off in the first place. Let them build a pipeline. Let them develop their resources. Let's get going here. Repeal the laws that have made Albertans so angry. Let them cook. He could and he won't do that because he wants it like this. Let's know the details, Mark, since you brought it up. What else are they not going to get? What are they not going to get? Say the words, Mark Carney. Since you went there, finish the sentence, finish the statement. What else do Albertans not get to keep? He's not going to do that. He's definitely not going to do that. And I don't know why. Albertans should know what they're voting for, I think. Quebecers should know. What are they voting for? The Clarity Act isn't very clear about a lot of those things, ironically.
As a follow-up, sir, on a different topic, 24 Sussex Drive. You've said that you'd like to see future prime ministers take up residence there.
Yes.
Why? And why do you think that's important? And what would you like to see happen to this building, and why is it so important?
Great question. I'll have a press conference tomorrow to answer that. I'll just let you know, I'll have a press conference tomorrow to answer that, but I'll have more time.
Really?
Wait.
It seems to me the reporter knew that there was going to be a news conference about 24 Sussex, because that is a very, very random question to ask the Prime Minister right now. Either way, it seems like they're finally going to do something with the Prime Minister's residence, which under the watch of, I believe it's the National Capital Commission, has fallen into complete disrepair. Apparently, it's gross. And frankly, I want to know what those people do all day. One of their few jobs is to maintain 24 Sussex. And it's fallen into incredible disrepair. That's unacceptable and a huge waste of our taxpayer money. And frankly, it's embarrassing. The residence of our prime minister is basically squalor. How does that happen?
Ambassador Hoekstra told CTV News on Tuesday that Canada and the U.S. aren't, quote, anywhere close in terms of a deal. You just spoke with the president yesterday. Do you agree?
What I have seen with the president is that you're not close to make a deal and then you make a deal. I've seen that in different cases. It doesn't mean the deals are good deals, but it means being prepared, having done the work, knowing what you want. So both things can be true.
The ambassador also said he believed that the next steps would really be at the president and prime ministerial level. I'm wondering if you agree with that. And also, I mean, you spoke a lot about your call being about the Middle East. How much did CUSMA play a role in your call?
We didn't discuss CUSMA yesterday. Look, ultimately, a breakthrough, if you will, on this will be at that level. We operate a little differently. We're very team oriented here in Canada, so it matters. Madame Charette, Monsieur Dominic LeBlanc, Ambassador Wiseman, the provincial premiers feeding in, the advisory council that we have. Discussions with a broad range of stakeholders. All of that feeds into our preparations for this, knowing what we want and what we don't. There'll come a point, there'll likely come a point where that possibility emerges. We also judge the possibility. I mean, we could sign a bad deal this afternoon, right? We could have signed a bad deal a year ago. We're not going to sign a bad deal. So it has to be a real deal.
Merci, thank you. Unfortunately, it's past noon. I've been told we have no more.
Well, there you have it, friends. July 1st is coming, and they had a good conversation, but didn't even talk about CUSMA. It's at the prime minister and presidential level now. That means that we are not into the weeds on little things. It's big things that still need to be sorted out. The U.S. doesn't want their digital media giants to be taxed by the Canadian government. That, I think, is a perfectly appropriate request of the U.S. government. Is Canada going to back down? They want their dairy farmers to have access to Canada. Right now, they don't. Not in a meaningful way. Are we going to back down on supply management? What's the prime minister going to give up? I understand not wanting to make a bad deal, but no deal might be worse. And what does a bad deal look like? Is it bad for Mark Carney, but good for Canadians? Because I have a feeling that a lot of the things the U.S. government is irritated about might actually end up benefiting Canadians if we have more access to more products, tariff-free. Friends, you just heard the Prime Minister of Canada's session-ending news conference. The Prime Minister clearly has more to talk about later on this week, and I will be covering that right here. Also, keep an eye out for the Pierre Poilievre session and news conference. I will tackle that in an upcoming episode. It should drop in the next few days. In the meantime, tomorrow, Listener DMs Friday. Have yourselves a great one. I'll catch you right back here soon. And as always, I'm going to leave you with the sounds of Pat James and the whole truth. Hey now.